And I think that at some point, if you would have asked me what's my favorite color or what do I like to do, I would not know. I'd probably lie to say something, but I would really not know because I didn't know who I was any longer.
Welcome back to the How to Take Care of Yourself episode. It's your friend Veronica, and I am so glad you're here. Today, we're diving deep into the power of healing, reinvention, and joy. My guest is the radiant and razor sharp Alina Calinescu. She's a pain-aware yoga therapist and Ayurvedic health counselor who brings both science and soul to everything she does. Trained as an engineer and transformed into a full-time yogi, Alina's journey is a story of curiosity, grief, burnout, and deep healing through the tools of yoga, Ayurveda, and self-discovery. We talk about the realities of depletion, the gifts of walking meditation, music as meditation, and what it means to reconnect with joy, not just as a concept, but as a daily practice. She shares openly about shifting from the grind of corporate life to the sacred rhythm of Ayurveda and how honoring her inner voice has brought her to this beautiful, multidimensional life. So whether you're feeling burnt out, joy deficient, or just looking for a nudge back to yourself, this conversation is for you. And hey, if this episode speaks to you, don't forget to do me a favor and hit subscribe wherever you're tuning in. It really helps us to help you. The more people that subscribe, the bigger we can make the podcast. The bigger we can make the podcast, the more amazing guests like Alina we can have on. Also, share this episode with a friend who needs a little reminder that joy is not optional. And if you think of it, leave a review so that we can keep this good medicine flowing. All right, let's get into it. Hello, Alina. I'm so glad you're here. How are you?
I am so good. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's a pleasure. So, I've told our listeners and viewers a little bit about you, but I would love for you to introduce yourself in your own words.
Hey, thank you. I am trained as an engineer and transitioned into a full-time yogi around 2008. I started fitness, and then about a year and a bit later, I was starting teaching yoga. I am a very curious person, so the more I knew, I don't know. So the more I wanted to know, and the more I learned. And then I was in the circle that the more you know, you don't know. And here I am, 18 years later on the same path. Interestingly enough, when I started, a lot of people thought it's the midlife crisis and oh, that shall pass. And I'm going to say to everybody that this is the longest midlife crisis in the humankind history because I'm still on this path. And I added yoga therapy and I added meditation, yoga nidra, pelvic floor yoga, which is one of my loves, Ayurveda, and all the goodness that Ayurveda can offer to us. So now I am teaching classes online and in-person yoga classes. I see clients one-on-one for yoga therapy and Ayurveda, but most often they intertwine. And I teach courses, yoga teacher trainings, 200 hours, 300 hours, and workshops and retreats.
Wow, you have a full plate.
And let's just say it is the full plate. I'm trying to keep it to Anjali full plate. Not very full.
That's amazing. Now, Alina, for our listeners, where are you from originally?
I am from Romania. Romania is in Eastern Europe. I came to Canada 1999. I know there was the big Y2K scare. And for about a year and a bit, I couldn't find work. Then I found work, and it was about the cycle of 2 years, 2 years and a bit. Then I would have to find a new job. And at some point, I got a little tired of that. I had the fitness thing going on aside. And I was just, what is behind door number two? What if there's something that is not killing me slowly, not softly? And I'd say that a lot of people dip their toes in it and they want to be the famous influencers and famous yoga teachers. And most of us don't realize how much work is behind it and how much work is to make it look easy.
That's for sure. So you came, like many of us, from the yoga door to the Ayurveda door. What do you think drew you to the Ayurveda?
A lie. My first encounter with Ayurveda was not as glamorous, unicorns running and on the lawn and cinnamon hearts and rainbows around. No, I was coming from the skeptical engineering slash Pita mind that that can't be true. But nevertheless, it was maybe the packaging was not the right packaging. And in my yoga therapy course, I had this wonderful doctor, Ayurvedic doctor that ran the Ayurveda module of training. And he started to look at our tongues, to take our pulse. Now it's tangible. Now I can wrap my mind around something that is not esoteric. It has a tangible component. So I'm starting to be more interested into it. So he is telling us about the doshas and finds examples of tongues and examples of pulses. And we try to take the pulses as like, what the heck? I'm not feeling all that much. It's like, what am I doing? I was like, oh yeah, that's me. And the Ayurvedic doctor school, then my teacher said, go take 1,000 pulses and come back and ask me the question. So it piqued my curiosity. As a result, I started to do a couple of things. I started to do, and I know that now Ayurveda not necessarily recommends the neti pot to the extent that I use the neti pot, but I started to use the neti pot and I got a copper tongue scraper and I started to use those on daily basis. Now, we know that Ayurveda doesn't recommend that we use the neti pot on daily basis, but I did. And I'm sort of happy that I did because I had a little bit of a deviated septum. And it turns out that my deviated septum started to correct itself through the use of the neti pot. Who knew? At some point, one of my friends that knew that my nose was slightly blown by the wind on one side. So like, I'm not seeing that deviation in your nose. Are you breathing better? It's like, funny that you ask. I think I do breathe better. And I was also having a whole bunch of sinus infections, maybe 3 to 4 every year. Maybe only one of them was debilitating, but the rest of them were, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. You get the sinus infections and you move on. So starting to use the neti pot and the tongue scraper made me a little bit more curious. Like, what's next? What if I already got these two things? What's next? So I enrolled in an Ayurveda course run by the Himalayan Institute in Buffalo. It was four really long modules, like from Thursday night to Sunday night, I think. And that was the foundations. And it was interesting. We got to have all kind of conversations, to experience classes, Ayurvedic yoga classes. We even got to cook. There is a kitchen that we got to clean all the veggies and do the prep. And we had some really fun exercises about making Thanksgiving Ayurvedic and not between a coma, food coma, design a pizza that is Ayurveda approved pizza. So it was fun. And it was interesting. And I was thinking, I think that that's good enough for me as I was teaching the 200-hour, 300-hour yoga teacher training to have a competency and confidence in the Ayurvedic segment that I wanted to introduce to them because it started to make a huge difference in my life. So anyway, I did. But then I found Mona. Towards the end of the pandemic, there was this global yoga conference, and I'm signing up to the OJAS talk that Mona was having. And I'm finding myself at the end of the talk buying her books, and I'm finding myself reading in one sitting the three pillars of Ayurveda, and then cold emailing her to ask her if she would want to share that with my small group of advanced therapeutic yoga teacher training group. And it's like, there's nothing to prepare, same thing. You want to do the same thing. And she did. And that's how I connected with Mona. And then one thing leads to another. It's like, if I have you as a speaker, I might as well book an appointment with you so I can speak from the appointment perspective too. And it just happened that I experienced a lot of grief and loss in 2021. And I was doing all the right things, but it exceeded my competency onto how to calm down the squirrely vata that was coming from grieving and having at the same time a little flood in the basement and remodeling renovations on another level in my house. So it's a lot that piled up. So I got to work with Mona, and Mona asked me, so there are two ways to do this. There's the slow way and there is like a real quick way. Which one do you want? It's like every cell in my body wants to do it like yesterday, but I probably shouldn't. Let's just vote for the slow and steady wins the race. And we worked together ever since. I started to be intrigued when the Ayurvedic Health Counselor course was coming through her newsletter, and I asked her a few more questions, and then I ended up enrolling for the course. And at the end of that course, I ended up enrolling into the next level, into the Ayurvedic practitioner course with Dr. Anusha that your listeners know that is your teacher and Mona's teacher and my teacher. So we share a teacher.
Yeah, we do. And isn't that fantastic? I love that arc of your story because you started out with the yoga therapy and then you found this one teacher who sounded so well versed in getting you to question things, like keep experimenting, which of course appealed to your engineering mind, like go figure it out. And then to go through the Himalayan Institute's program, come out the other side, still questioning, still with that curious mind, just fiercely looking for the answers. And now you're still going through all that. But as you told the story and you said that you were having some profound results from Ayurveda, would you be willing to share what some of those things were, what some of your struggles were, and how Ayurveda helped you?
I'm gonna be honest to say that it can be like a combination, a team effort. Yoga, meditation, and Ayurveda, as they probably work better together than taken separately. One of the things that I struggled for a while with was insomnia because it's no longer happening. I work shifts as an engineer, and the first time I worked shifts was my first job in Canada, and I was over the moon to get the job. I then realized that working steady afternoons is going to be having no social life, having not much interaction with my child, and all kind of other things. The shift was 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Then it came the overtime that was taking me all the way to 1 a.m. And I would be home because I had a report to make. I was leading the shift. I have the report to make. That was after hours. And at 1:30, I was going home. By 2 o'clock, I was home. Totally uncool to not be able to sleep. So then, what do? Being still in the invincible stage of life, you turn on the TV and find something interesting and you eat. And then next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. and you're still not sleeping. And I would go to bed at 5-ish. I would sleep until maybe 7:30 when my son was waking up to make breakfast for him and to take him to school. Then I would come back and sleep again. And I was basically sleeping and working. mostly. I did manage to find a different job when that job ended, and it was somewhat better. They were alternating shifts, morning shifts with afternoon shifts, which was a step up, I'm gonna say. Then I had another job after that, which was very friendly because I was in school. I was taking business and was very friendly for education, for studying. It was continental shift. So I was working three days, 12-hour shifts, and I would be off alternating 2 and 3 days. And all the shifts were pretty okay, except for the Sunday night shift when everybody was home having dinner, well, late dinner. What do we know if we're not Ayurvedis yet? So having dinner and a glass of wine and watching a show, and I would be off to go 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So I gotta say that that was the hardest shift. But anyway, I used to hit like a little crashing moment around 4 a.m. And when I was working days around 3 p.m. So those crash moments were usually reach for sugar moments, chocolate moments, finding things that would keep you going. And then I moved into an engineering job into one shift only, but there were loads and loads of overtime. So that would be, for instance, I'd be on call and I would have to sleep with my phone on the nightstand on vibrate. And I'd have an hour to get to work if I'm calling to troubleshoot a problem. And for instance, we're having experiments and we would need to be at whatever hour the experiment would go through the machines. It was, in a way, it was more steady days, but in a different way, over more hours of work than I wish I would have had. But, if you enjoy what you're doing, then the hours of work seem to be not so bad. So I developed a very finicky relationship with sleep due to this shift work. And I want to say that Ayurveda meditation and everything that I'm doing and measuring my sleep with electronic devices get me to the point that I have now a friendly competition with my husband. What's the sleep score in the morning? And he's no longer wanting to play the game with me because apparently I'm winning. Uh, and I think that that's one of the things that it's the most tangible and that I have the most scientific evidence to demonstrate that things are working well. And by the way, just last night I had the highest sleep score ever, 98%.
That's awesome.
I know. So, and another thing is the digestion. My digestion, I used to believe that I have a very sensitive digestive system and are all kind of things that are not necessarily my friends. But technically, it was a lot of the sleep deprivation. It was a lot of the self-care that was not happening most of the time. And it was a lot of push, push, push. I like to say that in hindsight, I think that I ran on fumes for a few years. It was probably the depletion and the burnout. But if you are a Pitta constitution, you're really not going to cave in and to acknowledge that you might be depleted and you might be burnout.
No, we don't like to admit it because for a Pitta constitution, it feels like defeat, and we refuse to be defeated.
Yeah, for sure. But I did find there were more challenges that I had. Like for instance, if I would be out in the sun, it'd be no sweating, but I would break out in hives, and I'd have all kind of sweating happening underneath the skin rather than sweat that shows as sweat. So that was another thing that was off. And there are other things that were off. And I found a lot of people are vilifying hot yoga. I'm going to say that for me, hot yoga was really helpful, but the hot and humid one to uh to work on my skin and to work on helping me sweat.
So it sounds like it almost helped to remove, there was maybe some stagnation at the surface that it helped you to break
Mm-hmm.
through and clear out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say that it's not only Ayurveda. I'm going to say everything that intuitively was a choice to try and to do. I usually tell people, don't toss it off after you tried 1 or 2 days something. You really need to give it a good month to 40 days, by now with the tissues building before you decide, yeah, this is for me, this is not for me. I still see a lot of people in my courses, my yoga courses, that come to Ayurveda from a skeptical point of view. Like, yeah, I don't know about that. And they ask me, why do you like Ayurveda? It's like, for me, it makes sense. I need things to make sense. I can't memorize things. I really need them to make sense. It's like, if you feel cold and I am serving you a big banana split, you're gonna think that I don't have it together, so I want to make you even cooler, right? But if I give you a nice warm tea and I bring you a blanket and I wrap you in a blanket, I give you a tea, and I set you beside a bonfire if there's a bonfire outside, or if there is something, a place that is nice and warm, then you're gonna feel better and you're gonna say thank you. For me, that's how Ayurveda makes sense. We're trying to make sense when we see someone having some manifestations that might be symptoms. And I keep telling people, there are so many ways your body is talking to you. And when it's talking to you in a whispery voice, are you there to listen? Because I wasn't. And it really needed to punch me in the face before I was able to listen and to respond to what was happening.
That's often what happens with people, though, especially when we don't know what we don't know, and we get really good at quote unquote ignoring what's happening because we don't either don't have the bandwidth to deal with it, or we feel like we don't have the time to deal with it, and then all of a sudden the body's like, you have to deal with this or something's going to break, or something does break, right? And then you have to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah, and I had many opportunities to listen. I'm gonna say it was 50-50 invincible stage of life combined with a Pitta constitution that very rarely listen until they have to listen. For instance, I remember one morning coming from about 10 hours night shift and falling asleep on the floor watching TV, no pillow, no nothing, and waking up 12 hours later, not being able to move my arm because I slept on my arm. 12 hours out. Okay. So that was the level of depletion that I am now acknowledging with the softer Pitta eyes and constitution. A lot of people say, I wish I would have found this earlier. I just say you find it when you find it, and you find it when you're ready to listen. Because if I would have found it earlier, I would have probably not listened. I had no reasons to doubt that I'm a winner, that I can win, and at whatever I'm setting my mind to.
And so from that level of depletion came this moment where you had to figure it out, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that I started to get trained in fitness while I was still in engineering, working in engineering, because I found it interesting. And like a good Pita, you do find it interesting and you do it in excess until people notice you and it's like, why are you not getting trained to do this? Because you're here anyway. You might as well get paid. I had this individual in my business school class that, let's just say, was coming from the gym and was being late to all the classes that we had. And most of us in the group were pulling a little bit the weight of this individual. And I asked him a couple of questions about being late and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, I need to get to the gym because if I don't get to the gym, I won't get to the gym after course. And I apologize for that. I was like, okay. I would like to know what's this gym about because I've never been to a gym. And I was like, okay, I'll take you to the gym on a Saturday or a Sunday. We can get you a guest pass. Him and one of his friends took me to the gym, got me to do some stuff. I was like, this is pretty boring. Is there anything that is not as boring? So, "Yeah, the classes. Why don't you go to class?" It's like, here we go. You can, and they pushed me into a fitness class. And I think I I started to get it, why that the movement is important for um decompress after work, before school, to decompress and to come to class. Now, in hindsight, this individual was, in my opinion, Kappa constitution, so he probably benefited quite a bit. Otherwise, he would have probably taken a nap. I'm having Ayurvedic conversation now with ChatGPT, and we are on Ayurvedic jokes, and that was one of the latest with a kappa nap.
The coffin nap. Yeah, I hear you. That's a thing. It's a thing. Sure is. So I'm hearing that moving your body is one of the non-negotiables for taking care of yourself. What are some of the other non-negotiables that you have to take care of yourself?
Oh, there's so many, but I would not suggest that people start with a laundry list, to-do list, because then it becomes like another job and then you fall off the wagon. For me, my non-negotiable is waking up early and going out for a walk. And I hear so many people that don't remember the last time when they went out in nature and when they went out for a walk. And I sometimes see a lot of people being out walking their dog and still being on their cell phone, or going out rollerblading and listening to music instead of listening to nature sounds. I think that for me, the non-negotiable is my morning walk. I don't know how long of a day I'm gonna have and what else is gonna show up in my day. So being out for a walk at 6:30 makes sense for me. That's one of them. And then regardless how exciting things are and are about to be, I'm going to bed early enough for me to sleep, to have a good quality sleep. And I really like how in Ayurveda, for instance, we're not looking at the BMI and how much do you weigh and how do you look. It's how do you feel. So is your sleep, do you wake up rested when you wake up? Can you digest your food? Are you having meaningful relationships with nature, with yourself, with nature, and with other people? Can you feel good just doing nothing? So for me, the nothing, the sweet nothing was a really long lesson because the level of depletion that I remember it being at Kripalu, one of my favorite places, taking a yoga nidra course and falling asleep after I'm gonna say that maybe I was making it through the body scan and then disconnect nothing. The same thing happened in restorative yoga. Restorative yoga is another one of my loves. And I used to take a couple of breaths and then fall asleep. And I want to say that in between wide awake and fast asleep, there was nothing. And I remember my teacher, Judith Hanson Lasseter, telling me in one of the restorative yoga trainings, my dear, you really need to take care of your kidney chi. I was like, what the heck is kidney chi and how do you know that? In hindsight, I was very pale. I was very, very thin, very pale, and I was in a state of depletion. So if I look at some things that are coming from traditional Chinese medicine, some of them are similar to Ayurveda and some of them are different. But the level of depletion that was seen on me, interpreted through the traditional Chinese medicine lens, was about the kidneys, right? So I would say that taking care of my energy is very important and managing my energy because we as Pira, good Piras, we can actually put a lot on our calendars. As much as the paper will take it, we will put it there, and it is going to be there. And I learned to schedule blocks of times of doing nothing, unstructured time in which I decide what to do with it. Maybe I have a yoga practice, like an active yoga practice. Maybe I have a passive yoga practice. Maybe I feel like taking out the harmonium and practice some chanting. There's so many ways to fill your unstructured playtime. I think that we as grown-ups, we find ourselves into, yes, we are grown-ups, but we don't know what to do with it sometimes. We want someone to tell us what to do with it. And I think that at some point, if you would have asked me what's my favorite color or what do I like to do, I would not know. I'd probably lie to say something, but I would really not know because I didn't know who I was any longer. And it's interesting that most of us are finding ourselves going on this path, putting one foot in front of the other and doing the things that we need to do and having a joy deficiency in our life and finding ourselves like little pre-programmed robots, AI avatars, little avatars are doing the things that we're not feeling the things because we lost touch with who we are and we lost the joy. You know, like JF would say, the joie de vivre. To enjoy living and to figure out, life is too short to be all work and no play.
So true. Life and people kind of take it for granted that there's going to be all of this time. And so often that time is not nearly as long as they think it is. And I think you're right. I like what you said, the joy deficiency. Like there's a joy deficiency on this planet Earth, but especially in the Western world.
I think we're not only in the Western world, I think that a lot of people that may have been, I don't know yet if this is, I think it's a learned behavior that comes maybe a little bit more natural for pitas that we want to do well and we want to do it well from the first time so we can do more things and we can have even more things to do when we do it well from the first time. So I think that we become this pre-programmed individual that is programmed to, do well or choose something, choose a job that is paying you well and buy a house and have some kids and I don't know, some people want dogs and cats and then work yourself to death so you can have a pension that you're not going to enjoy for too long if you're that depleted. And I think that one of the things that I find with some people that I'm working with that um, if you ask what brings you joy, it is always something that is dependent on somebody else. It doesn't come from within. So I get it. We all like to spend time with a significant other or with our pets or losing ourselves into a conversation. But I refined that question because that was asked. I was asked that question and I really didn't have anything. My teacher asked me, asked around, we were in an invitational course, and the question was, what do you do for yourself, by yourself, to bring you joy? And if you're already a yoga teacher, you can say, I read yoga books. You can say, I teach yoga, I practice because you already do those things and you're getting paid for those things. And yes, they bring you joy, but what else do you have? And there was this room full of people that were quilting and crocheting and doing stained glass and doing all kind of interesting things. And when it was my turn, I just felt like I got nothing, and I said like, I got nothing. I'm sorry, I got nothing other than getting ready to teach my classes and studying to understand and to know more. I don't think I have anything. Then the question was, what did you used to do as a child that you really enjoyed and you're not doing any longer? And why are you not doing it any longer? And that path led me to music. Now, I did play piano for many years, but I enjoyed it, and then I didn't because it became too many hours of structured studying, and I didn't have time to play enough. But I did like music, and music was my companion through most of my life. So what I found actually was that knowledge of piano translates very easily on the harmonium, but it does sound different. So I borrow a harmonium from a yoga teacher friend and I try to learn a little bit. And I was like, I'm not going to buy one because a lot of people are buying a lot of things, wanted to try a lot of things, and then they end up in a financial hole buying a lot of things that they don't use and a lot of equipment that they don't use. Like, if I'm serious about this, 3 months later, I'm gonna buy one. So I did. I did buy one and I started to most of the time figuring it out on my own and find some YouTube recordings and things to teach me more. And the thing that I'm doing for myself and by myself that keeps me grounded is actually music. I go every week for 1 hour to take a music lesson. It's not about chanting only, it's about finding songs that speak to me and speak to what I'm going through, basically, or to heal some older traumas or older samskaras that are no longer useful. Anything goes from chanting to Lady Gaga. There is a wide variety of things that we're doing. My coach is a singer-songwriter, and he's not a chanter. At some point, I had 3 people coaching me. I had a voice coach. I had 2 voice coaches. And we're running a retreat here where I live in London, Ontario. And as I was learning harmonium, my voice coach was usually coming to do a show for the retreat at the end of the retreat. And we got a chant to treat people to a chant at the end. Should I know that somebody in the audience was an experienced chanter, I would have probably not even opened my mouth, but I did, and we did it. And then she was like, that was pretty good. If you want to learn more about the harmonium, send me an email and we can maybe exchange services and you can learn a little bit more about it. So at some point I had 3 people that I was working with. I had to trim it down to 1, but I finally realized what the question was. What do you do for yourself, by yourself, in which you're not dependent on other people? So you can have what we call in Ayurvedic Yoga Nidra uncaused joy. So joy for the sake of joy. Not joy because somebody else makes me feel good, or we have, not that that's something that I wouldn't do, but what do you do for yourself by yourself seems to have a little longer lasting effect and seems to be very grounding and very soothing for the mind. So I found
It's true.
I've reconnected with music.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I love that you really took the time to discover what brings you joy.
Yeah, and it was difficult because I came home and I went on making lists, like pita lists, and making lists what other people were saying. And I was like, yeah, I would probably not crochet or do those things because I'm not I need to do something that is a little bit more fluid and more dynamic than that, not as repetitive. Not there's anything wrong with it, but it's not my thing. So it took some time, and I'm not the person to dive in deep if it's not working. I'm the person to dip my toes into it, then go to all the way to my ankles and all the way to my knees to see if the water temperature is right and if the thing is right. And if the thing is right, then I'm diving in once I know that the thing is right and I know what's the time commitment. You know how people are. Even when I sign up for the Ayurvedic practitioner course, it's like I need to meet with Dr. Anusha and I need to ask all these questions because those are the things, the parameters that I need to input in my life and to know what's the level of commitment. I used to be a little bit more impulsive with commitments, and I think that is what got me into the big black hole of depletion to begin with, and then it was the loss because I think there were 5 people that died in our family within a short period of time. There would have been like maybe 4 or 5 months, and it was still COVID, and some of them were really, really close to us. And I think it was 4 or 5 family members and 2 of my friends. So I think that was, the drop that overflew my cup of depletion, so to speak. I didn't have the resources to that.
I don't know that anybody has the resources to process that much all at once. That's a lot.
It's a lot. That's when I started to work with Mona, and that's when we started to work slowly, despite of the impatient tendencies of Pitta. I'm starting to embrace the more sattvic Pitta, and how being a sattvic Pitta, you're probably more productive and more grounded, and you have time to do the things that you need to do and the things that you want to do, because sometimes they are not the same.
It very often they're not the same. Right. Oh my gosh. You've been through so much and you've learned so much. I'm really curious if someone came to you and they're just starting out on their journey taking care of themselves, they're just starting out on a health journey, what would be some of the top pieces of advice you would give them?
Hey, so we all know that if you give too much, then it becomes a job and it's not being done. I would go on that road, what brings you joy, and how can you not be joy deficient? And overdosing in joy is a good thing, but it takes practice to do that, but not overdosing too much, because that can also take us off balance, right? But in the beginning, it's like having an infusion. What do you do there? There's science, that tells us that you can boost your immune system. Just pop in some funny movies and laugh a lot, right? So what makes you laugh? Find something, an activity that is bringing the joy that you might be missing. Many people have very demanding jobs, and jobs that are sucking the life and the joy out of them. And then they don't have the energy to do these things. And if that's the case, I would say maybe if you can, wake up 15 minutes early and go for a walk and take some deep breath outside in nature. And maybe that's a good start. Or how can you do something to unwind before you go to bed? Because I used to be that person that I need to do this emails and they need to be done now, and I need to have all these things done before I go to bed, checklist before you go to bed. And then you're all wired and you can't fall asleep. Or if you fall asleep, you can't stay asleep. I went through a phase in which I had a notebook on my nightstand to write the ideas that were waking me up so I can put them on the piece of paper. So I think that it would depend if this person presents with maybe not sleeping enough or working too much. What would be the thing that would be interrupting the cycle of self-inflicted or not self-inflicted depletion and abuse? Because we're basically abusing ourselves until we can no longer do that, because we're hitting rock bottom, and then we're like, what's wrong with you? Because you can't focus. The way it manifested for me, I was telling Mona, I feel like I'm spending 3 times longer on things that they used to come so easy to me, and I need to read things over and over again because they don't make sense to me, and I'm having issues focusing. And I've never had issues focusing. I used to be like, razor focus, get it done, then move on to the next thing. So it would depend, right? So if somebody wouldn't be able to focus, maybe going out for a walk, not for a workout. A lot of people confuse the movement to only going and working out really, really, really hard. And that was a thing that I worked with a few people with PTSD and their doctor. They were either in military or in RCMP, and they were told by their physician to go and work out until they're so exhausted and then go sleep if they can't fall asleep, right? And it's like, and that might be making logical sense for you now until it doesn't, right? It's like, what if you'd go to a yoga class that has a longer relaxation at the end? What if you would be working out not as hard? You would go for a walk and then take a 10 minutes, lay down and do nothing and breathe. So it depends, right? It's Ayurveda. We learn in Ayurveda that everything is it depends. So it depends, right? Now I have a client that is working out basically daily. And so like I get it that you really, really like working out. But would you consider waking up a tad bit early and going out for a walk in the morning? For a leisure walk and maybe not work out quite every day. Maybe take a couple of days in which those walks would be longer, right? For me, the walk, it's been a year since I started the morning walk. Did I like it? Not really. I was not a morning person. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this a go and I'm gonna try. And I think in 1 year, I only missed 1 or 2 days. It was freezing rain. It was not making logical sense for me to go out. But if it's raining, I'm taking an umbrella and I'm taking my rubber boots and I'm still going. It's one of the most healing things if you give it time. And now I'm waiting. I'm looking forward to the morning to go for my walk. And I want to say my first 15, 20 minutes is probably it's like a walking meditation. I'm taking everything in, and sometimes I'm taking pictures. I'm putting those on social media. And the last 10 minutes are about planning my day. So I'm doing that 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes of walking meditation. There's a beautiful blue heeler puppy that I'm eating most of the days, and now we're friends. And now he gets off leash and comes to say hello and goodbye. And the last 10 minutes, like things are coming to me logically. What would make sense to do today? And that was one of the things that used to keep me awake, planning for the next day most of the time. And now it's like, all right, we're gonna think about that tomorrow morning at the end of the walk. Right now, it's not the time to think about that. So it's not the flip of the switch, is making the conscious decision to not engage with those thoughts that the mind does. That's its job to generate thoughts, but it's our decision to engage with them or not necessarily engage with them in that moment. So I'm making an appointment with myself, and sometimes my husband hears me talking to myself, like, are you having a meeting? Yes, like, yep, I'm having a staff meeting. So then then we laugh at it. It's like you have a tough boss is like, tell me about it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
So if I would say one thing and one thing only that would work probably for everybody, reconnect with nature and find a way to be outside.
Yeah, getting outside and being in that environment, no matter what the weather. I think you're absolutely right. People lose connection with that. And even, it's accomplishable even if you live in a city. Somewhere in that city, you have a green space that you can go see, or even if it's just that you're walking the city streets, you're looking into the sky, you're seeing the birds, you're seeing the clouds, you're seeing whatever's there. But really having that connection with nature is so integral to our health. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Alina, you've told us lots of things, but what you haven't told us yet is how can people find you? How can people work with you?
So they can find me on social media, either Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm gonna give you links for all those. They can message me directly, and we'll take it from there.
Am I right in hearing that you have an album coming out?
I do have an album coming out. I've been recording chants for a while right now. I did not think they were for anyone other than for me and for my classes. And I connected with somebody that is a spiritual artist, and he was kind enough to listen to one or two of my chants. And I was like, are this going to be published? And I was like, I have not really considered that. It's like, you should, they are really good. So that was what started me. When I say we, as me and my voice coach, because he is the other voice on the chants. Some of them are just me and the harmonium if they feel right, and some of them are call and response. Some of them are overdubbed. I've done the call and I've done the response too, and some of them have a little percussion going on. So it was a labor of love. It was the joy coming back to my life. So we are working on it. It is in the final stages in which the sound is being equalized on all tracks. If this episode is coming before we're choosing the cover, my friend ChatGPT helped me design the cover for the album, and I put my picks, several of the things that I've been working on social media for people to vote. Which one do they like for the artwork?
Amazing. I can't wait to hear your album and I can't wait to see which artwork you've chosen. So exciting. So we have a tradition here on the How to Take Care of Yourself podcast where at the end of the podcast, each guest answers two questions. One comes from the Delve deck, and this time I've picked the Joy edition. I did that before you even started talking about joy. So I find that very interesting. It was very intuitive. And so I'm just going to shuffle the cards for a second and then we'll pick one. All right, let's see. What do we have here? I love this one for you. What is your favorite season and why?
I like summer, but I like summer at the beach where we live. There are lakes, and we go to the lake, and the lakes are pretty chill and pretty cool. And it's a fantastic activity. I'm usually under an umbrella, and I go and dip in the cold weather. And I think that summer is my favorite, but I did come to love them all with my morning walks. I love summer because I usually have more time off in the summer, and I can spend more time doing sweet nothing at the beach, having my feet in the sand and going for swims.
I can picture that. I can picture you there, lounging under your umbrella, looking all glamorous and relaxed. It sounds lovely. And so the other question we ask at the end of every episode comes from Dr. Mona Warner, and it is, what are you learning from the food that you eat?
I'm learning that most of the food that I eat is medicine, and some of the food that I eat, despite the fact that I know it's not medicine, I'm still gonna choose to have a little bit here and there. We talked about the 80% of the time, so I'm gonna go for the 80% of the time of the food that I eat is medicine, and it's nurturing and nourishing. But I want to have once in a while a slice of pizza, and I want to have once in a while some chocolate. And as I was saying to a client, it's not that you're not going to have those ever again. It's what season and in what quantity, and to be able to stop and not have too much of it if you know that too much is not a good thing any longer.
Exactly. And I think for you in that 20%, you might indeed be nourishing your joy with those foods.
Yeah, well, I do. I am well known for my retreats that I am baking a flourless chocolate cake. And a lot of people told me that they come back for that cake. I hope they come back for more than the cake, for the activities and the conversations that we have and the education. And that is one of the things that is the 20% of the time that I like to have the decadence of chocolate. So chocolate is good, but I used to have it a little bit too much of it, and too much of a good thing may no longer be a good thing. So I get to a point where I can have a little bit and I'm going to be satisfied with a little bit. And that brings me joy. More of that brings me a stomach ache or not such a great quality sleep.
Yeah, so it's about knowing your limits. So the food is showing you where your limits are, I think.
Yeah, we have a thing in Ontario, because I'm in London, Ontario, that the gaming and lottery companies saying, know your limits, play within them. So I like that slogan, and I think it applies to activities, it applies to work, so it applies to food, it applies to everything.
That's beautiful. And I think that's a perfect place to end our conversation for now. But I think our conversations will be continuing, Alina. I think you are just a fabulous guest. I'm so glad you could be with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a joy to speak to you.
It's been a pleasure here too. I can't wait till the next time. Wasn't that just everything? Alina's story is such a potent reminder that it's never too late to pivot, to heal, or to rediscover what lights you up from the inside out. From grief to harmonium chants, from burnout to beach walks, her journey is a masterclass in listening to the body, to nature, to joy. If you want to connect with Alina, you can find all of her links in the show notes below. Her one-on-one sessions will open up again mid-June, and she's also releasing that chanting album that I cannot wait to hear. As always, if this episode nourished you in any way, please, please hit subscribe and let the algorithm know that you enjoyed this content, that you thought this was useful. Send it to a friend. Let them know that joy is non-negotiable. Also, if you could, leave a rating, review us, help us grow. It's just me. I say we, but it's really just me here at the How to Take Care of Yourself podcast, trying to bring good health to everyone as fast as I can, as best as I can. And if you're not already on my email list, pop on over to veronicawolff-casey.com. That's Wolf with 2 F's, and you'll get exclusive resources, podcast extras, and all the upcoming goodness delivered directly to your inbox. And remember, you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to wait permission. Just take one step. Walk outside, have a cup of warm tea, maybe a few minutes with a friend. And remember, in case no one's told you yet today, I love you, and I'm convinced of your capacity to continue crafting a life worth living. I can't wait to see what you become, and I'll see you in the next episode. Catch you next time. Bye.